Assalamu alaikum, family, peace, healing, and light. And welcome back to another episode of Healing with Angelica's podcast, where we discuss all things healing. And if you are new to the show, I just want to say welcome, welcome, welcome for joining us today. Thank you so much. Now, on today's new episode, we have a beautiful guest joining us today, my sister, Amneris. I probably said it wrong. I told her I might mess up. So, Amneris, as we'll be discussing today's topic, healing through faith. Faith. Sister Amneris, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I am well, Sister Angelica, and yes, you were right. It's Sister Amneris. Thank you for having me on your show. First of all, I'd like to say, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. Assalamu alaikum, family, and to everyone that's tuning in today. Thank you for tuning in today.
Mhm. Yes, yes, yes. Praise be to Allah. And one more time, say your name one more time.
Amneris.
Amneris. I'm probably saying it wrong. So if you guys just hear me say her name wrong, y'all know what I mean, okay? So bear with me. Yes, praise be to Allah. Now, for those who do not know my sister, do you mind letting our audience know just a little bit more about you?
Absolutely. My name is Sister Amneris. I am a native of Puerto Rico. I was born in Puerto Rico, migrated, and yes, I used migrated to Buffalo, New York, where I was raised. I am the oldest of six siblings. I am currently in Lexington, Kentucky. I'm part of the Muhammad Study Group of Lexington. Shout out to my study group. Um, and I have been with the Nation of Islam now going on 5 years. Um, and I have five beautiful children.
Mhm.
I am the owner of the Bridge Language Services, where we do interpretation and translation services. I'm also a mobile notary. And let's see, I wear different hats. I have 1,001 hats. Those that know me know I am speaking the truth. I literally do 1,001 things, but I'm also a Spanish teacher, which is one of my biggest passions at the moment.
Yes, yes, praise be to Allah. I love that, sis. Thank you so much for letting us know all of those beautiful things that you do. Now, let's get started on today's episode, Healing Through Faith. And please, don't let me be the only one asking questions. Please, for my audience today, do not hesitate to put any questions you may have for our guests today in the comment box below. So today's episode is very, very special to me because it was faith that actually guided me through my healing journey and the confidence I actually obtained by having faith. Well, I was able to declare my victory of my certain healing situation at that time. So it was that unwavering trust that you have in God and self to know that even though you don't know or you don't understand what may be going on in your life, it's all about taking that first step and trusting Allah and knowing that He's sufficient. So praise be to Allah. And that brings me to my first question for you, sister. I'm gonna just say sister. Sister and Monaris. Tell us about your healing journey through faith, beginning when you were diagnosed with lupus.
Okay, so um, first of all, I will explain what lupus is for those who aren't familiar, because sometimes when I share my story, people are like, well, what's lupus? Some people aren't even really familiar with what it is. So, lupus is a condition that attacks your healthy tissue, healthy joints, healthy organs, right? And it is a chronic illness that has no cure. So a lot of people compare it to cancer, right? Except with lupus, there is no such thing as remission, as oh, you can go for certain things such as therapy or something like that, right? With lupus, you can take medication, and some people live long, healthy lives, but it really depends on where they catch lupus.
Mm.
So, lupus is known as the great imitator. And
Mm.
I'll explain why. So, when they discovered lupus for me, I had been battling it already for years, unknown to me, unknown to my family, unknown to my doctors, because it is the great imitator. So every time I would go to the hospital, it was okay. You have um, pleurisy. I went for chest pains. I had pleurisy. Um, something was wrong with my kidneys. You have kidney disease. Something was wrong with my back. Oh, there's something wrong with your lungs. There's something wrong with your liver. There's something wrong. But all these little small illnesses that came and went for one reason or another, they never really considered that it was one illness that was affecting my different organs. And because they never really tested for one illness, they were just considering, oh, it's just one organ that's affected at this time. They never really considered it was lupus.
Mm.
So I remember being out, and, I was out shopping. And one of the things with lupus, it makes you gain a lot of weight. So at this time, I'm 260 pounds, believe it or not. You know, I am so overweight. My eyes are really chinky. My face is it's so overweight. Um, I look at photos from that time, and, my family looks at photos, and they're like, even my children, they're like, Mom, we never saw you this big. Like,
Mhm.
because your family and everyone gets so used to seeing you at a certain weight, or at a certain however they see you, that they're like, okay, that's just part of who she is right now.
Mhm.
So I remember at the time, everyone was just so used to me gaining weight and gaining weight, and it's just like, oh, okay, so that's part of your PCOS. So everything was always part of something else, but it was never part of, okay, this is what's going on with you.
Mhm.
And I was so down. It was like, I'm 260 pounds. I've never been this big. I was always like featherweight.
Mhm.
I was like 100 pounds, wet, soaking wet when I was younger. So I'm so overweight. And the doctor's like, you lose weight or you're really close to having a heart attack.
Mm.
You need to do something. But at the same time, I had issues with my lungs, so I couldn't, because I couldn't even go up a hill without losing my breath.
Mhm.
So I was out shopping for clothes, like it always was, because every few months I would have to go out shopping for clothes because nothing fit. I was almost at a like size 25, 24 in pants, really.
Mhm.
Um, and it's my nose. I remember that my nose started bleeding, but it was like my nose was a faucet and somebody turned it on and it just started bleeding.
Mm.
And I started running out of the store because I'm like, oh, I'm about to get blood everywhere. So I'm like trying to keep this, and I passed out. And,
Mm.
I'm all in Cincinnati at this time. And I remember I woke up in a hospital. So at that point, Cincinnati has some of the best hospitals, I will say. Um, they ran all type of different blood tests on me,
Mm.
and they so happened to run a full blood panel on me. And when they did that, they discovered that I had lupus.
Mm.
Well, the doctors at that time, they said, um, we don't know how much it has affected your organs, because it seems to have already affected all of your organs, and we don't know what we can do for you. Um, they said, you need to have a talk with your family.
Mm.
And, when they tell you that, well, first of all, when they told me lupus, the only people I knew that had lupus had died, and they
Mm.
were very close to me. So in my head, I'm like, I'm going to die.
Mhm.
That's the only thing you hear that's the only thing I heard. It's like lupus, dying. I'm dying. And then when they put it the way that they put it, it's like, I'm going to die,
Yeah.
you know?
Mhm.
And the only thing I thought of in that moment were my children. I'm like, my children. I didn't care. I'm thinking in my head, my children and my family. Because to me, my mother and my siblings, My siblings were all very close. My mother always raised us very close to each other. So all I thought about was, how do I say this to my mother? And how do I say this to my siblings? And what's
Mm.
going to happen with my children? My children.
Yes.
So of course, the doctors are like, okay, you have to give this news to your family. I can't travel. My family's all in New York. I am in Kentucky.
Mm.
So I call my siblings and I tell them, you all have to go to mom's house and we need to have a conference call and I need to let you all know something. And they're like, well, what's going on? Well, I need y'all to go and be there for mom because I'm the oldest. So I'm usually the one that'll be like, okay, I'm the strong one and I am the one that always
Mm.
has to handle these type of things. So I'm the one that's always there like, okay, I'm that rock. But this time it was kind of different. And I still tried to be that rock and still try to be the strong one and kind of relay the information in a way that was going to be okay. But I needed them to be there for my mom because, of course, I knew that she wasn't going to take it lightly. And I knew that they weren't probably going to take it lightly, but I didn't know how the situation was going to be. But I needed to inform them because not only was I going to deal with the lupus issue, they also informed me, okay, you have a coagulating issue with your blood already, which means that you can have the coagulation in your blood can cause these um the word is skipping me right now, but blood clots that can run
Mm.
into either your lungs, your heart, or your brain.
Mm. Okay.
And I'm sitting there listening to them, and I'm like, so I'm gonna die, you know. And of course, when I'm relaying this information to my family, I'm really sugarcoating everything because how do I tell them, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Um, so I'm listening to the doctors, and I relay this information, and my siblings go to my mom's house. Well, I had one of my siblings that I hadn't talked to in a few years. We were like not talking, and I can't tell you right now why, but
Mm.
we were not talking for like years, okay? And they all sat down, they were at my mom's house, and I'm like, I just need to tell you all that the results came back from this happened. The results came back and they don't know how it has affected my organs, and they can't really tell me if anything, if I'm going to make it that long because they don't know how far it's affected my organs.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, I'm counting on them to be strong for my mother, right? Well, the sister that I hadn't spoken to in a long time, she's like, "What do you need? Do you need one of my kidneys? Do you need this? I don't care what I need to give to you. What do you need from me? Tell me right now, what do you need from me?"
Yes.
And she's bawling and she's crying, and all my other sisters bawling and crying. And my mom, I hear her sob softly. But out of everyone that was making the commotion, I think my mom stood the calmest.
Mm.
And even though she was sobbing, um, she stood the calmest. And from her, and I can think of it now, I always learned to be a strong woman thanks to her.
Yes.
So even though I thought she was going to be the one that was going to break down and, everybody needed to be there for her because I wasn't going to be the one that was going to be strong for them. Um, she saw everybody breaking down around her and she had to be the one to stand strong for all of us at that moment. And she
Mm-hmm.
didn't disappoint. But it was a moment we all had to go through
Mm-hmm.
um, at that moment. I had to make a couple of other phone calls because I had two siblings here that weren't on the call, and I had to call my baby sister and my baby brother, which I raised almost to be my children,
Mm-hmm.
and tell them. So I had to tell my baby sister, and she breaks down crying, and then I had to call my baby brother. Now my baby brother, he's like, this man, and of course I had to call him and I had to tell him, I just need you to know because if anything happens, you're the only one I really have here.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, don't tell me that. And he started bawling. And
Mm.
of course, as soon as he starts bawling, that's when I started bawling, because me and him, even though he's a boy and I'm a girl, that's they call me, we call each other twins. And
Yeah.
I just started bawling. At that moment, I felt like I could release a little bit. And that's when my journey started. Um, my journey started at that moment, because that's when I really started feeling a lot of the effects of what I was going through.
Mhm.
Um, Shortly after that, I had to go through uh, my first emergency surgery, which was the kidney surgery.
Mhm.
Um, they put me on medication, and sis, I'll tell you, it was a very trying. You go through fear.
Yes.
That was the first thing. It was fear, and you go through fear, which is to establish faith, right? That's what the minister says.
Mhm.
You go through fear to establish faith, and I went through the moment of fear, and when I tell you fear, I couldn't sleep. I went through such fear that I literally would cry. And at this time, I wasn't in the nation.
Mhm.
So I would sit at the foot of my bed and I would scream and cry, God, please let me sleep. Because I was in such fear that I would go to sleep and I wouldn't wake up.
Mm.
So I wouldn't want to go to sleep. And I would cry, like, please, I just want to go to sleep. Can I please sleep? Can I please go to sleep? But I didn't realize that it was because I was so afraid that I couldn't go to sleep. So
Mhm.
I was so afraid to go to sleep, but at the same time, I wanted to go to sleep, but I was so afraid I couldn't go to sleep. So it was like almost a moment of insanity,
Mm.
um, because I was so afraid. So I would kneel on my foot of my bed and I would just say, God, please just let me go to sleep. Please, God, just let me go to sleep. And I went through a lot of that by myself. So that started establishing my journey. Um, to faith, because I didn't want to start calling on my family and putting that what I felt was a burden on them.
Mm.
So I remember I went through my first surgery. I had kidney surgery. Um, I remember opening my eyes and my friend was there and my brother was there.
Mhm.
And that was an emergency surgery. I remember I was in the middle of a parking lot, like on the floor. Somebody had to take me to the emergency room and I had to get emergency surgery because it was unexpected. Lupus can attack you like this. It can come on slowly or
Mm.
it can come on rapidly. So you can be okay one moment or you can automatically have to go to the emergency room. I was in so much pain that the doctor would tell me, if you go through a moment of pain, go straight to the emergency room. I can't give you medication that's strong enough to handle your pain.
Mm.
You have to go to the emergency room. And it was basically like I was in the emergency room every other day
Mm. Yeah.
because the pain was so much that it was like I had to get medication from the emergency room. Anyways, I remember I watched this movie called War Room. I call it prayer room, but it's called War Room. I suggest anybody watch that movie. It's a great movie. But I watched that movie and I made my own little prayer room.
Mm.
I call it my prayer corner because I didn't have a big closet to make into a prayer room. But I made this prayer corner where I would sit at and I would pray and I would tape up my prayers.
Mm.
I would just sit and start building on my relationship with the God, because I knew that that was the relationship I needed to work on.
Mm.
Now, of course, I was raised in the church, and my mother always talked to me about, your relationship with God is the most important relationship.
Yes.
So he is the only one that can get you through any type of darkness that you go through. So in that moment, through the fear that I was going through, it was either fear or faith. So you either are going to consume yourself with fear or you're going to consume yourself with faith. And at that moment, I had to make a choice. So I surrendered myself
Mhm.
to my faith. And it was just one day I remember kneeling and just letting it all out. And
Mm.
when I mean letting it all out, I just cried.
Yes.
And sometimes just allowing yourself to cry it out, letting it all out, you know, in our lessons now, of course, I joined the nation later, but in our lessons, it says um, to the MGT and GCC, right? It
Mhm.
says, but do not let me catch any sister other than herself in regards to living the life, right?
Mm.
And weighing properly. So
Mm.
we're taught to weigh properly, and we automatically think it's weight physically, but we don't think about the weight here. We don't think about the weight here.
Yes.
So I started releasing all of that was here and that was here. So all of that, fear that I had in here, everything that was weighing on me, I started just releasing that.
Mm.
And I started leaving it to God. I started leaving that to God. Like, why am I worried about this? There's nothing that I can change. If it is your will, God, let it be.
Yes.
What is it that you want from me?
Yes.
What can I do? So I started every day waking up and being thankful for what I had. I had one more day with my children. I woke up today. Thank you, God.
Yes.
Thank you for allowing me one more day with my children. Preparing myself for the inevitable if it was to happen, if I wasn't going to be there.
Mhm.
I started calling my mom every single day. You have to be appreciative of those things that you have because one day they may not be there.
Mm.
You know, I started talking to my children more. Sometimes we think because we have our children there, but are you there? They
Ooh.
are there, but are you there? So I started talking to them. Let me talk to my daughter. Okay, where are you at right now?
Mhm.
You know, Now my children, they were my rocks because I was so sick that there were days I couldn't even get up from bed. But my children, my son, and my daughter, they were days where my son I would pass out in the bathtub. I would pass out in the bathroom. I would pass out everywhere. My son would have to pick me up, lay me in bed, and he would have to watch me. And it was just normal. Now, that's not normal for a child, but it was normal for my children.
Yeah.
My children would not go out without coordinating between them. Are you going to be home? Oh, okay, then I'll go out. Are you going to be here? Oh, okay, then I'll go out. They
Mm.
would not leave the house without making sure that there was someone there to be with me.
Mm.
And that meant a lot because as a mother, you're supposed to be there for your children.
Yes.
But my children were the ones that were there for me. So, I felt like I took a lot from them at that time. They had to, but it also reminded me that in my childhood, I had to do the same. So,
Mm.
anyways, going forward, it it brought me to realize that you have to be thankful for absolutely everything in life, even the simple air that you breathe.
Yes.
It's nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed. So I went through a process. I went through that process of now I thank Allah, thank you,
Yes.
God, for having me here today. Thank you for allowing me to go visit my mom today. I was so far away from family, and my family still to this day, they probably don't know half of the things I had to go through, you
Mm.
know. August of 2018, moving forward, August of 2018, I had surgery for my stomach. They had to remove 75% of my stomach. So I only have 25% of my stomach.
Mm.
And I'm only able to eat 3 to 4 bites of food, and it's like I even miss food, but I think a lot that I can eat 2 to 3 bites of food,
Yes.
because even that is like a blessing. There's people that have to eat through a little bag, that can't even eat. So I think a lot that I can even still taste food, still eat food, you know. So it's little things, that you think about it, and you have to always always look at the positive and the negative, because sometimes we focus so much on the negative that we don't look at the positive that comes with it. There's always a lesson in the trials that we go through. So August 2018, I went through the process of having 75% of my stomach removed. And moving forward, I'm so grateful to Allah, right? I am living my life. I'm still like, Allah, thank you. And of course, I don't know him as Allah at that time. It's just God.
Yeah.
Thank you, God. Thank you for giving me another day with my family. Thank you for, allowing me to see. I look at my children. Sometimes I would break down and cry, and at this time I'm a single mother and I'm looking at them and I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
God, thank you for me being able to spend this New Year's with my children. Thank you for me being able to look at my daughter today. Thank you for me. It's just, you have to be grateful for every single little thing that you get in life, because you are not owed anything.
Ooh.
So why should you not be grateful for it? I remember at this point, in February of 2019, I go in and, I've lost a lot of weight and I'm feeling really good. And people would ask me, how are you feeling? I'm feeling great. And I really don't even think I'm sick anymore, but y'all can think whatever y'all want to think. I'm feeling great.
Mm-hmm.
So even in those times that I was feeling down, my daughter, she would send me little videos and she would be like, Mom, look at how good you look. She's like, look how good you look. And I would start crying because I'm like, how did she know that I needed that right now? But
Yeah.
that's the thing. My mom would tell me things like, God will even use a stone to get a message to you. And I would think, when I was younger, I would think like, Mom, what are you talking about? A stone? Yeah, he's going to throw a rock at you and he's going, because you don't think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember now, just last year, I actually came across this in the Quran, how it talks about hardening of the heart, right? It says about the stone. And it made sense to me and it clicks to me how my mom is talking about a stone, but it's really how people can turn hard as a stone, right? So I'm thinking, yes, he can use people that maybe we don't deem as soft or as, as righteous. He can use anybody he wants to get a message to you.
Ooh.
So don't think anybody is less than you by giving you a message or by trying to teach you something.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I'm like sitting there and I'm like, okay. So I'm like, I'm good. Like, I'm so good. I feel good. So I went in February of 2019 and they ran my test. And by this point, I'm actually getting blood transfusions. And I remember even that was a trial because they called me and they're like, we need you to go to this appointment. They didn't even tell me that it was the Markey Cancer Center. They're like, we need you to go to this appointment. You're going to have to start getting some transfusions done. And, and I'm like, so where am I supposed to be going? Oh, you just need to go here. There's some stuff going on with your blood. So we need you to, start going here and we're just going to start getting you some blood transfusions. And I'm like, okay. And I pull up and it's the cancer center and I'm like, oh God. So I'm sitting there and I'm getting my blood transfusions and I'm like, okay, it's just another test. It's just another test. It's just another trial. I'm going to get through this. And I'm like, okay, God, okay. Let's get it on. It's like, it's just another test. I'm like, but I got this. So I remember going through it and here comes February and I'm in my appointment. Doctor calls me. Okay, we need to get your test done. They get my test done. March comes through. She's like, we need you to come into the office because we need to go over your blood work. And I come into the office and she's like, well, I just want to let you know that we ran your test and there's no lupus in your system. And I'm like, oh, I already knew that. But in my head, I'm like, I knew it. I'm all excited, but I'm like, oh yeah, I knew that. Praise be to Allah, right? But I'm like, yeah, I already knew that. And she's like, well, we can't even say that it's in remission because lupus is not cancer. There's no cure for it. So we don't know what this means, but we're bringing you back. We're sending you back for lab works,
Mm-hmm.
and we're still keeping you on, your transfusions, and we're bringing you back. And I'm like, okay. So I went back. She's like, you need to fast and all of that great stuff. And I'm like, okay. So I go home and I'm praying and I'm like, thank you, God. I know.
Yes.
God, like, thank you. So I go back and the next day and I fasted and I go back and I'm like, oh, it's Allah, Of course I didn't know Allah, but I'm like, praise be to God. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I go back and I'm like, oh, praise be to God. I'm like, okay. So I go back and there's no doubt in my mind. See, because sometimes when you pray, and this is where the faith comes in, right? Because if you're praying and you're going into prayer with doubt, then are you really praying faithfully?
Mm.
Because when you go into prayer, you should have faith in your prayer. If you're already bringing doubt into your prayer, is it really good? You're already doubting
Yes.
who you're praying to. And that's what we forget. Are you doubting the God that you're praying to?
Ooh, we.
See, because Allah already destroyed the impossible when he created himself out of triple darkness. So we should not doubt anything that we pray him to. Now, we should know that his will be done. So if it is not his will, then it will not be done. But
Yes.
then we should be grateful that it is not done because it is not his will.
Mm-hmm.
But we should not go into prayer doubting what we're praying for. And that was where I was at that point. My faith in him had grown to the point where I knew that if it was his will, I would be healed.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that regardless, I was going to be healed. Anyways, I went 3 months. They're like, well, it's not in your system. We need to bring you back in 3 months. We're still keeping you on transfusions. I'm like, okay. Went back in 3 months. No lupus.
Mm.
Went back 6 months later. No lupus. And I'll say that my last test was last month, I believe. And no lupus. Praise be to Allah.
Wow.
Praise be to Allah.
Ooh.
No lupus. Because, Allah does everything perfect, don't he?
Yes.
You should never doubt what he does. So, of course, you have to make some life changes because you can pray, but you also have to put into action what you pray for. So you have to change, your eating habits, what you do, you know. But sorry, I kind of went
No,
all the way there.
no, sis, you are fine. I wanted you to go into details about how your healing journey began with lupus. And as I was listening to you speak, it's like even after you heard the news about you having lupus, of course, in your mind, and I think with anybody, of course, when they hear that, it's like, oh my God, I'm about to die. I'm going to die. But it seemed like to me you maintain that knowing within yourself that you are going to make it through it and get through that. And like you said, this was even before you joined the nation. So you personally had a relationship with God, and you knew from there that you was ready to take that journey and that step. But one thing you mentioned that I think, and it's not even funny, but Minister Ishmael actually spoke about it in the last lecture, just about that gratitude and being grateful. Like even in those times of not knowing what to expect, not knowing if you're going to die, not knowing it's going to be your last day, last breath, last moment, you it seemed like that situation kind of made you be more open to being aware of how grateful you are for where you are now and what's going on in your life. So do you mind just elaborating just a little bit on why is having gratitude important when having faith?
Well, I think that's one of the most important things, because how can you not be grateful, you know, for everything that you have? You know, what have we done to deserve anything that we have? You know, that is one of the things. And at least, being raised in the church, or at least being raised by my mother, that is one of the things. When we moved here, to the United States, we had nothing.
Mm.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I am grateful for every little thing that I have. Sorry. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm very grateful for everything that I have. But Allah is sufficient,
Yes.
so when you have faith in Him, He supplies everything that you need.
Mm.
Um, so everything that we have, my mom always told us, and she taught us, when God wants your attention, He can remove everything from beneath your feet.
Oof.
So when you have nothing, that is the perfect moment to kneel and pray to God,
Mm.
right? She always taught us that. So it says something, right? It shows you that when you have nothing, even when you have something, it is all given to you by Allah. And it can also be taken from you by
Yeah.
Allah. So gratefulness is something that you should have whether you're up or down, because it is only given to you by He who has the power to give it to you,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Um, but as far as faith, you must have faith in He who is the ultimate provider of everything. Um, so yes, for me, you know, we came here, we had nothing. I saw my mother, sometimes we lived in New York, so I saw her sometimes push a cart, walking around collecting bottles to be able to go exchange them for cents, to be able to go get diapers and milk, to
Mm.
be able to, have for me and my siblings. Well, not really for me, but for my siblings. So that is where I come from.
Yes.
So that is where my gratefulness comes from, because I've seen us come from nothing. But I've seen where my mom took nothing and made it into something. And that is only through the grace of Allah, and her faith. My mother, even from not having nothing, her faith was like not even knowing English.
Yes.
And she may be somewhere in the audience right now. Bendición madre, si estás ahí. She still to this day, she's been here maybe 30 something years, not trying to hint to my age, but she really she really is something. Her
Mm.
faith may waver sometimes, but you know that is how when I was just talking about the stone, right?
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Allah will place people in your life, not necessarily that are in certain places in their life. It may be that one person in the corner that you may stumble across that may tell you a word that you needed to hear. So she continuously had people, just like myself, when I've been through things,
Yeah.
just continuously had people come into their life. I was telling one of the sisters earlier, I used to have a neighbor when I was really sick. I used to have a neighbor, sometimes I would wake up. She was my friend, and she would be in my house cleaning my kitchen,
Mm.
and she would just be there, Netta, let me clean, you need me to clean your kitchen? But she would
Yeah.
already be doing it. you know um just people that Allah puts in your path, just like the minister had, the angel Jibril. He had, just people that are put in your path to guide you, You
Mm-hmm.
know, Allah always puts you on that path to Him. And
Yes.
I remember someone telling me when I first joined the nation, if you start thinking about your life and when Allah started guiding you to Him, you can see a path and you can. Like when you start thinking back, like on your life, you can see a path of where Allah was guiding you to Him. And if you start thinking even back, you could start seeing that path. It's just you have to think back to it. And it's a beautiful process to go through if you start thinking back to it. But anyways, I may have gone off track for a little bit. I'm
No,
sorry.
oh no, you're fine. You did not go on track. And, praise be to Allah. I just really want to make emphasis on just being grateful and having that gratitude even through it all. It always reminds me of when the minister um was going through his situation with cancer, and how he didn't curse Allah, he didn't wish to be alive, he was just grateful. He was just grateful to just be in the moment, and just, thankful for everything that has happened in his life, and where Allah has brought him to. So,
Mhm,
of course, the logical thing when we're going through things like that is to, beg for our life, oh my God, I'm going to die, and unfortunately, it's not a good feeling. It's unpleasant. And, but unfortunately, sometimes we have to go through certain things in order for us to be reminded how sufficient Allah is. Sometimes it's so many times in my life where I can go back and just think about, man, like I never would have made it if it was not for a lie. If it was not
mhm,
a lie taking me through certain things in my life. And like you said, going back and actually, I always say marinate. Go back and really
mhm,
marinate on things that has happened in your life, and see where God was at, trying to direct you and trying to guide you, and help you to be who you are today. So, I just love that. Praise be to Allah. And if you are enjoying all of everything that my sister is saying here on the show, please, 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 please show your support by donating today to Cash App $ Healing with Angelica to help sustain future episodes just like this. And also, if you are enjoying all of the broadcasts here on CCG Broadcast, please show your support as well by donating today. Information to donate will be shown on your screen below. I love you all. Now let's get back to today's episode, Healing Through Faith.
I
So,
do have one thing, Sister Angelica, and I will say this. One of the biggest process to healing is self-reflection. Because one of the biggest things that I had to do, and one of the things that I did not do, was question God as to why me.
mm,
You have to be able to look at yourself and realize that we are not perfect. So when I learned the news, it was like, I'm going to die, but I never questioned why me,
mm,
because I know the things that I had done. I know I didn't have an easy life. I know certain things that I had done, but I had to reflect
mm,
and look within myself. Now, did I think maybe the things that I had done deserved for me to die? Maybe not, but I never questioned God. I never questioned God because maybe because of the way that I was raised. My mom always taught me, God is the all knower. He knows what is best. He knows what we do. He knows what we conceal. He knows everything. So I was not going to sit here and be untrue and be like, God, why me? Well,
yeah,
no, I had to be true to myself and say, okay, what is the lesson for me in this?
yes.
What is in this for me?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I never questioned God in it. Like you just said, it's like, oh, why me? Why me? Why me? Yes, that is naturally what we go through. But I think because my mom was the foundation for me and she laid so many principles for me that now that I'm in the nation, it's like those principles really go with the nation. And it's so surprising to me because sometimes I hear her talk and I'm like, Mom, if you only knew, you know?
Mm,
But it's like she really raised me in a way where it was like, okay, God, I hear you. Somewhere I lost my way. What is it that you're trying to make me see?
ooh. Mm,
Where is it that I lost my way that you're trying to get me to hear you or see you? Because obviously I did. And obviously you're trying to get my attention.
yes.
So, it was more of a self-reflection moment of, okay, I must have gone wrong somewhere. How do I get back on track?
Mm,
So it was a moment of we need to be able to start working and looking inside ourselves as well. Not just we start pointing the finger of, you. Well, why did you pick me? Why do I have to go through this? And that's naturally our reaction, right? But then
mm-hmm.
we have to start looking at ourselves.
Ooh. I'm so glad you brought that up. And this is like off script, but like just going through this Ramadan, like, I'm getting a little, I don't know why I'm getting emotional. That's crazy. But just going through this Ramadan, and this is my first time being able to actually like go through the fasting part of it by the grace of Allah. And there's so many different things for me that's being revealed that I didn't see. I didn't see it before. And I'm so glad that you brought up that self-reflection, because to me, I feel like that's kind of where it starts, because you have to first be aware and recognize that, okay, I need healing. Something is wrong. But also, it's also going back and taking that accountability and being like, okay, what did I do? Where did I go wrong? What did I see? Because we do have this thing, and we do get in this habit of just pointing the finger and blaming
Mm-hmm.
someone for why why this happened or that happened. But as you go back and marinate on certain things that you've been through in your life, you can kind of see where, okay, I can see where I was wrong. I can see where this happened and that happened. And sometimes, it may be situations where, you didn't do nothing at all,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. But most of the time it's on our own accord as to why certain things happen in our life. So that just takes me back to just me saying that I'm so glad that you brought up the self-reflection in healing, to be able to actually go back and reflect on certain things within yourself, to have an understanding. And once you have an understanding of yourself and know that you're human, you're able to have an understanding of other people and understanding of why they may have done the things that they're done, that they may have done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going back to really unlocking these doors that of course we don't want to do, because it's like, I ain't trying to go all back in the day and think about the past, the things that hurt, but it's important. We got
Mm-hmm.
to unlock those doors. But that brings me to my next question for you. And we'll kind of, I'll have another question after that, but we'll kind of like elaborate and close it down after that, because I know within this is going to be a whole topic within itself. So, um, before the show, well, you told me about uh the healing journey with your father. And I thought that was just beautiful, because within your healing journey with your father, you spoke about forgiveness, in which I'm just feeling like there's a whole lot of forgiveness that has to be that's going on right now in my life, and just trying to really, embody that. So, do you mind sharing your healing journey and learning forgiveness through your situation with your father?
Absolutely. So, ooh, that's a long one. I'll try to get through that really quick. But that brings me actually to when I joined the nation. Um, and it's a perfect timing, right? Because we're in the second phase of Ramadan, which is the phase of forgiveness.
Wow, we are.
Yes,
I
yes.
know that. Okay. Wow. Whew.
So it's a perfect timing. And like you just said, this is the first time I've been able to participate in Ramadan. So we are right in tune with each other. And, I have not been able to participate in Ramadan because, like I said, I only have 25% of my stomach.
Mm-hmm.
And when I joined the nation, I was like all in. I'm like once a day between 4 and 6. I'm only gonna eat once a day. And then I almost killed myself. And
Oh.
my sister captain is like, sis, if you need to eat 5 times a day, you need to eat 5 times a day. And I'm like, no, but I want to do this. I need to do this. And
Yeah.
she's like, sis. So she had to call all the way to national and have me speak to Sister Captain Emeritus Aisha. And she's like, sis, if you need to eat 5 times a day, you need to eat 5 times a day. And I'm like, okay, I'll eat 5 times a day. I'll eat 5 times a day. But at this point, I was making myself very sick and I was losing extremely weight because unfortunately, when you remove that 75%, it removed the portion that absorbs nutrients. So when I eat those 3 to 4 bites, I don't absorb any nutrients. So I do have to eat more times a day to absorb any nutrients at all.
Mm.
Anyways, long story short, 2 weeks before Ramadan, I'm like, I'm going to train my body to eat only 1 time a day. And I did. Because, this right here is a very powerful thing. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, Allah, I want to train myself to eat at least 1 time a day. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'll drink water all day, but I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
I love you too, mommy. That's
Oh.
my mom. She's in the audience.
Hey,
But so I'm like, I'm going to train myself to do this and I'm going to do this. So guess what? I did it for 2 weeks and I'm like, okay, I'm going into Ramadan. I'm going in strong and I did it. I went into Ramadan and I've been able to fast. But I will tell you this, I did have to break it like every 4 days. I have had to, maybe break it half a day because my body will it's to the point where it's like, and I know the Quran excuses me. I know. I've had to hear it from my sisters. I had to hear it from my brothers. I do know that. But I'm doing this because it is my sacrifice and I do want to participate in Ramadan. This is what I want to do. And it's just like you said, my mind is just like in this connection phase where I've been like, oh, Allah, it's like,
mom.
it's a beautiful thing. It's like such a beautiful thing. It's like, it has me in tune and it has my mind in like this high that I can't even explain. But anyways, on to what you asked me. So I joined the nation 2000 and August of 2019. I was able to ring the bell at the Markey Center, even though I didn't have cancer, but they allowed me to ring the bell because it was my last transfusion. In September, I don't remember if if I sent the brother a request or if he had sent me a request, but I went onto his page and I saw that he kept posting this brother talking about God, and I'm like, man, that's so beautiful that the youth is still expressing interest for God.
Mm.
It was the minister, but I had never heard of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Never had I heard of the minister. Okay. So I'm like, man, so I sent him a message and I'm like, it's so beautiful that the youth are still expressing interest and showing love for God. So they invited me out to a meeting. And I remember I came and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll go out to the meeting. And I went out to the meeting and I'm looking around and I'm like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be here because, you know, we as so-called Latinos have been blinded to the fact that we're Black. So I'm looking around and everybody's Black and I'm like, I don't know if I should be here, but okay, I'm here. So I sat down
Mm-hmm.
and I see this beautiful man come on the screen and I'm out on Holy Day of Atonement. And the minister is speaking, and I'm telling you, when you hear certain people speak, you say, like, that man's speaking to me. But no, the minister was speaking to me. I don't care what anybody else says around me. He was speaking to me the whole time going like this. Like, yes. And I'm in the agricultural field.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a trade and regulatory specialist. So I know what's going on with agriculture in this time. And the media is not talking about it, but the minister's talking about it. And I'm like, yes, brother, yes. And I'm like, and the whole time I'm like, yes. And nobody's talking about this. And I'm like, yes. So, I'm like listening to it and I'm like, this is beautiful. So at the end, they're talking, and I'm like, and the student minister at the time, he's like, if you want to learn more, you can raise your hand. And I'm like, well, I don't know if I can raise my hand, but I'll raise my hand, because still at the time I'm like, well, I don't know if I can. But the first question I asked my sister captain was, well, am am I black? I'm like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Shout out to my study group, common study group of Lexington, because they never made me feel like I wasn't at home. The moment I stepped into that study group, 1 month later, I was already registered in November of 2019. I had already recited and I was at home,
Yeah.
And December of 2019, I was already in my first believers meeting. So I was super excited, whatever. I graduated February 2020 was my graduation. And I remember I went to my graduation in Detroit. I was all excited, and I'm talking to my student captain, me and her. The minister called Savior's Day Part 2 in Chicago. So I'm on my way there, and I'm talking to my sister captain, and I'm like, you know what? Me and my dad had a falling out, because when I had my daughter in 2013, I was on a deathbed. And the doctors at that time, they had said, we have done everything we can. Now it's her turn to fight. That's what they said. And I had called out for my dad before I had lost my sight, before I had lost being able to speak. I was in the bed. I could hear everything around me, but I couldn't speak. I couldn't see. I couldn't move, but I could hear everything. And my father never came. My father never called. So when I woke up, by the grace of Allah, when I woke up, I said, he lost a daughter. His daughter was dead in that bed. He didn't need to worry about me anymore. That was that anger, that grudge that I held for those many years. When I came into the nation, I was able to let that go. Well, I was telling her, you know what? I'm going to go show up at my dad's house. I'll send the children in first, just in case he's angry. I know he ain't going to close the door on them. So I arrived to my house that Monday. Go back. We stayed at one of the sisters' house in Chicago, and she had a sister open the door for us because they were on vacation. So she had a sister open up the door for us, and that sister was talking to us. And you know what I told you about those angels that Allah sends to you to kind of prepare you for certain things? This sister started talking to us about how she lost her husband and how she turned herself over to Allah, and how Allah helped her through that grieving process, and how she was at the mosque during that grieving process, and how the believers helped her through this grieving process. And she went in, and it was such a beautiful story that I was like, praise be to Allah.
Yes.
That was on a Saturday. Monday, I returned back home, and I'm telling my student captain, I'm like, I am going to forgive my father, and I'm going to show up. Well, Tuesday, I received a call that my father had committed suicide. Now, I was not prepared for it. Well, at least I felt like I wasn't prepared for it, but I didn't expect it. But Allah had prepared me for it. Because a few days before that, and I got to share this with the sister at this last Savior's Day, I went to her and I told her, I just want you to know that Allah used you to prepare me for the death of my father. Because thanks to your testimony and for you speaking to me, I was able to get through my father's death. Because I learned about it on Tuesday, and on Wednesday, I was at my study group. And I was able to go through my grieving process thanks to the conversation that I had with the sister. But that was the angel that Allah placed in my path to prepare me for what I was about to go through. And I can't say that it's an easy process, but what I will say is a lot of times we hold on to grudges without even going through and analyzing the situation. And I will say this: I believe in the atonement process. Okay. And now more than ever, I believe in the atonement process, because I didn't get to go through the atonement process with my father, and I held on to that grudge of, your daughter's dead. Don't call me. Don't bother with it. I don't want to know nothing about you. You didn't come when I needed you. You didn't come when I was on my deathbed. So since you didn't come on my deathbed, you lost your daughter.
Mm.
That was my thought. I didn't get to ask him why. I didn't call him and say, hey, Dad, why didn't you come when I called you? Why
Mm-hmm.
didn't you come when you were 3 hours away and I was dying? The doctor said I was going to die. You didn't come. Well, if I would have gone through the atonement process and contacted him, I would have gotten the response from him that I got from his wife. So when I went and I was sitting there at his memorial, I said, the only thing I would like to ask you is, I asked his wife, I said, why didn't my father contact me when I was almost dead? And she said, oh, mija. She said, your father called plenty of times. He just couldn't get through to you.
Mm.
So you imagine
Mm.
me holding on to a grudge
Mm.
for so many years, when really no foundation. They really had no reason. And my father, he was very prideful. So of course he's not going to call me if I told him your daughter's dead. You don't need to call. So what I mean by that, a lot of times we hold on to these grudges. We hold on to this. We don't go through the atonement process because we hold on to our pride. And
Mm.
I'm not going to call him. I'm not going to call her. And you know what? It could be something that is a misunderstanding. It
Ooh.
could be something that could be easily explained. It could be something that could be squashed. But you know what? Tomorrow is not promised. And I'd rather squash something with someone today than to have to live with the regret of not even being able to discuss it with someone tomorrow. So I tell a lot of people, especially a parent, you know, don't hold on to those little things, because you don't know if that person is going to be here tomorrow. We're losing people left and right. And it may be a sickness, it may be an illness, or you never know what someone is going through personally. Those people that are smiling, that are, you never know what they're going through behind that smile. Some people are smiling the biggest and are going through the worst.
Ooh.
I say that through personal experience. I am one of those people that going through the worst of times, I would have the ability of putting on the biggest smile,
Yes.
but I was going through the worst of times.
Mm.
So you never know what someone's going through. You never know someone's experiences. You never know, what they may be going through at the moment. You may be, going, like, keeping these negative feelings towards someone, and it may be even causing damage to yourself. you
Yes.
know like I just said, carrying on that weight. And that weight, one thing I will say, I do a lot of translations, and I go with people to their doctor's appointments, and a lot of times it's to their heart doctors. And the doctors, they love me. And but a lot of things that I hear is, the number one thing that people die from with heart attacks is stress.
Mm.
It's stress. They carry around this weight, which is stress. That weight that Master Fard Muhammad is telling us, weighing properly, it's carrying just the stress, that the weight that you need to carry, not the extra weight of carrying everybody else's weight.
Break it down.
Stuff that you don't need to carry on you, you know. Um, but yeah, that was the forgiveness part. Sometimes they don't even worry about you, you know? And you carrying it around with this grudge and all this extra weight, and they ain't even worried about you. Or they don't even know that they did something to you.
Woo. Mm.
So, if you have something with someone, call them. Tell them, hey, I'm bothered by this, or I'm hurt, or they may not even know. But
Ooh.
that forgiveness with my father taught me a lot. I don't ever want to go through that because it's something that I pray to Allah to continue to help me through it because I didn't, I wasn't able to, I forgave my father for the things that we went through, but I wasn't able to express that to him.
Yes.
And it's a regret that you live with.
Mm.
And I wouldn't want to wish that on anybody.
Mm, mm,
Yeah,
mm. So beautiful, beautiful. So glad we talked about that. And I did not know we were in the period of forgiveness. That's why forgiveness is so heavy right now. Wow.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So praise be to Allah. Thank you so much, sister. I'm gonna try to say it.
Amneris.
Amne, Amnari, Amneris, for joining us today to talk about this beautiful, oh my God, this beautiful testimony, this beautiful topic, healing through faith. I would also like to thank my amazing audience and Healing Tribe for joining us today. I pray that this information was informative, valuable, and always, always, always healing to you all. Also, be sure to share, like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes on any of your favorite podcast station, Closing the Gap Broadcast Network, on CTGB. Also, Healing with Angelica's podcast here as well, so you can get started on your healing journey and listen to these beautiful messages that we have for so many people. Also, if you're ready to start your healing journey and don't know where to start, Healing with Angelica is here to assist. And as the time of Ramadan, I am offering free calls right now. So if you are ready to start your healing journey, more information and schedule will be shown in the comment section below. Also, let me go down here. We have the Healing Tribe merch right now on sale for Ramadan, 25% off. So definitely check out our Healing Tribe merch here. I'll show a few pictures. Yes, we got the Healing Tribe. We are healing. We are healing. Praise be to Allah. That's my mom there. Shout out to moms. Hey, mom. So yes, right now we have a sale going on right now, 25% off for the month of Ramadan. And just a friendly reminder that any purchases that you make is to help to sustain and support Healing with Angelica. So just please keep that in mind, as inshallah I am planning to expand, and I want Healing with Angelica to be traveling all around the world. So be on the lookout. So praise be to Allah. And also, one last thing, if anyone you know or yourself are in need of prayer, Healing with Angelica would like to send a special prayer to you. And you can do this by emailing us at healwithangelica@yahoo.com. All right, my beautiful sister. Before we end today's show, I need you to go ahead and drop us some good knowledge before we close the show today. Can you please leave us any beautiful closing remarks?
Ooh, let's see. What can I say? Um, I guess I would say not to lose faith. Sometimes we may think that what we want is what we want, but it may not be what we need.
Mm.
So just continue to trust that Allah is the all knowing and continue to pray. He does not hear us unless we pray to Him, right? That is what we are taught. So continue to pray to Him and know that He knows what is best for us. So when you pray, know who you are praying to. Know who you are praying to because He destroyed the impossible when
Ooh.
He created Himself out of triple darkness. So there is nothing impossible for Him. So go into prayer in faith and know that anything that you pray for can be done.
Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. Thank you so much, sis. I'm so grateful
Praise
to
to
have you on the
Allah.
show. Your testimony was so beautiful. And yeah, Until next time. I love you
Praise be
all.
to Allah.
May Allah continue to bless you guys. Assalamu alaikum. Peace, healing, and
Assalamu alaikum.